Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Lesroy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.
Good afternoon, and I welcome you to Working for You. I am Lesroy Williams. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's program. Today we are going to be discussing something that is common, inescapable to all human beings all around the world, and that is plastic. We have all come into contact with plastic, sometimes every day of our lives. But that is not the problem. The problem is that our world is polluted with plastic, and that creates a problem for humans, animal life, and sea life. Today I have with me officials from the Ministries of Tourism in St. Kitts and in Nevis. The ministry is celebrating or has this initiative called Plastic Free July. And so we are going to be talking plastic today. I have with me Mrs. Dianelle Taylor Williams, who is the Assistant Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism in St. Kitts. And I have with me Vanessa Webb, who is a tourism officer who is here from the Ministry of Tourism in Nevis. To both of you, welcome to this program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Plastic. Plastic Free July. Can there ever be a plastic free July? We must encounter some form of plastic, use some form of plastic, and so on. So what is really meant by a plastic-free July?
Actually,
a July without any plastic?
we wish we could be at that point, but we are realistic and we recognize that plastic has become an integral part of our lives. And so what we're doing is creating awareness of the need to reduce the amount of plastic that are generated, especially single-use plastics, because there are other things that are plastic. For example, where we are today, there's some plastic, but it is used multiple times, and we all know about the durability of plastics and flexibility and all of that. Plastic is even used in clothing, making clothing, right? And vehicles. More and more vehicles are being manufactured. Plastic is used in the manufacture of vehicles. But a vehicle is not a one-use item. You don't take it off the lot and then take it to the landfill 2 minutes later. But sometimes we do that with plastic bags when we go shopping. You get it now and some people even just drop it. They might have bought a patty or something and it's in a plastic bag. And once you're finished with the patty, you drop the bag without any consideration to where it ends up. And that is why there's such a thing as a plastic-free July. Not that it ends in July, but this is where we heighten the awareness of the need for us to end plastic pollution.
Mm-hmm. One of the things is that you mentioned, of course, is plastic is unbiodegradable. And my research tells me that it takes 500 to 1,000 years for plastic to degrade.
That's right.
So it means then that that's a real problem. If it was biodegradable, of course, you probably wouldn't have the levels of pollution that we have with plastic, because it will just degrade and go into the earth and all that sort of a thing. But it builds up over time. People throw them all over. We look at our beaches and so on. Sometimes we go to the Southeast Peninsula, and all over. Plastic. What can be done to reduce that sort of activity? The garbage disposals and so on our beaches. That threatens, of course, marine life. They get into the ocean. Sea life choke on the plastic,
Right.
and so on. What can be done?
Well, actually, 5 solutions have been proposed. One of them is to refuse, and that is you can refuse to use plastics. Or, for example, if you go to a bar, why do you need a straw? You're being given the drink in a glass. Do you really need a straw? So you can refuse to use the straw. You can reduce the amount of plastics that you use, and so you take your reusable shopping bag. You can also recycle. Where you absolutely have to use plastic, you recycle it. We can also remove plastics. And this is one of the last solutions where plastic has already been used, and I know that plastics would have been introduced into our federation in a big way in around the 1950s, 1960s, that sort of time. And so that amount of plastic has been introduced into our environment. So what we can do is help to remove the plastics that are already there, because as you explained, it takes 500 years to disintegrate and to break down. And so we know that that plastic from 1950s, 1970s is still out there somewhere. So we can do our part. The beach cleanups you spoke about the beaches being littered with plastics, and the strange thing is that not all the plastic that is on the beach started on the beach. It might have started somewhere else, because we know, especially with the topography of our islands, that something that might have been thrown down or disposed of in the mountains or on the gut sides find their way back down to the ocean.
Yes.
So we can do regular cleanups of these areas so that we remove it. We also have reduce, reuse. I'm trying to remember the fifth the fifth one. Refuse, reduce, reuse. How can we reuse plastic stuff? And we can do that making things, for example, we had an issue with water conservation issue, and we know that we're not getting as much rain as we've had many years ago, so we're having less rains, but we still want the crops. We can reuse plastic water bottles to input water directly into the soil, so reduce the amount that is evaporated, because we have these bottles filled with water directly into the soil, feeding your plants, and so you're finding another use for your plastics. So those are things you can do to eradicate the pandemic that is plastics for us. And as you spoke earlier, it reminded me, you said the harm to marine life, but it reminded me of an infographic I saw just a couple days ago. There's a picture of a fish, there's a picture of a water bottle being swallowed by a fish, being swallowed by a human, and that's exactly what happens.
Right.
We are swallowing the fish which has swallowed the plastic. What happens to us?
Right. And it is something that you really cannot burn, because it is made from petroleum. Isn't that so? And then it has all these toxic fumes and so on.
Correct.
That go into the atmosphere. You want to speak a little bit to that?
Certainly it is a major concern, because as we said, it cannot be broken down that easily, and we ourselves then we are not creating the best environment for us when we have to burn the plastic because of the chemicals which are released. And so for many reasons, we want to ensure that we reduce the use of the plastic. I want to say that in Nevis, we are very pleased that we are joining with the Ministry of Tourism in St. Kitts, and we thank them for allowing us to collaborate with them. This is our first time coming on board in observing Plastic Free July, and so for us, we're pioneering. But I want to speak to a very successful event that we had, if that's okay.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
We just had the Mango Festival, the Mango Fest, which was
Yes.
held on the 8th of July.
That was Sunday.
Sunday, yes, at Wally. And that was organized by the Nevis Tourism Authority, and which Mr. Greg Phillip leads as the CEO. And I was speaking with Mr. Devon Liebert, who is the director of the NTA, and he was sharing their model of ensuring that the event was plastic free.
Yes.
And apparently the event itself was a tremendous success, and that added a whole lot more value to the event, in my opinion. And what they did, when persons came, on entering, each person got each person was given a cup, and so that cup was meant to use throughout the event as you visit the various stalls where vendors were exhibiting and samples of mango dishes were offered, and juices. You will use that cup at the various stalls, so multiple use of the cup. Also, vendors were given paper plates and paper spoons. So that is what the patron used at the event, and it was for them very successful. They were able to achieve their goal of ensuring that there was no plastic use at the event. In fact, there were no water in bottles either, no bottled water. They use the 5-gallon bottles that you can refill, and it just works superb. So it demonstrated certainly that we can go plastic free, and
Yes.
we are promoting that for major events.
One of the things that fuels the many use of or uses of plastic is that plastic is very cheap.
Exactly. And we're thinking economics there. that
Yes.
comes in.
I am happy you mentioned that,
Yes.
because I did ask Mr. Liebert, what about the cost? And he said to me, it wasn't excessive. Yes, because I was interested in knowing how cost effective it is, because usually we talk about budget constraints. And he said it was within a reasonable budget for them. So that is
Yes.
good for us to know.
It's very cheap. And one of the things that I saw in London last year when I was there is that many supermarkets do not give you plastic. If you want a plastic bag to put your stuff, you would have to pay for it.
That's right.
And so what happens is that you have people now, like when I would go with my aunt to the supermarket, she would walk with her bag to put her shopping stuff, or she would walk with plastic. So in that way, right now I have so many plastic at home, I wish it was money.
I know.
A lot of plastic bags.
Right.
And I find I throw them away sometimes because it's really too much.
Accumulating.
But the idea is, what I can do is that next time I go to the supermarket, I will take those
And we use.
plastic bags with me and we use them. And I think that is something that people can do.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's what we are asking people to do, is to reuse, find other uses of the same plastic so you can get as much out of it. If something can last 500 years, why are you only using it for 15 minutes? And that's all you have to think. This can last 500 years because we buy other things and we want to get our money's worth out of it. We say, I paid $200 for these shoes. They should last me more than 2 weeks, right? They're leather, so they should last a long time, and we want to get the best. We take them back to be resold and do all sorts of things so that we can keep them as long as possible. It's the same thing. Plastic lasts 500 years. Get as many uses out of that plastic as you possibly can. And if you don't think you can, find alternative options, find other options instead of the plastic. And that's one of the things we are promoting during Plastic Free July, is people getting reusable shopping bags. And I don't see, I understand the young persons, they might not know about this, but I keep telling people, when I grew up and my mother sent me to the shop to buy bread, I walked with a brown paper bag, the one with the handles. I remember Brown Bakery having theirs. It had their logo and their information, contact information. But you would take the bag, you got one, and the next week you would go, you take the same bag. Sometimes you see the greasy mark on the bag because the butter bread, but you're reusing that paper bag several times. Or in some cases, your family would have a flour bag made. It was bleached, and you would embroider the word bread on the bag. It had this drawstring, and you would take it home. No plastic bags were involved, right? Why can't we do things like that? I mean, so it's not that we're actually going back in order to go forward, right? And that's what this is bringing our attention to, because our grandparents lived long lives, and it had to do with the things that they did. Because you also have the issue of the chemicals you spoke about, not only going to the marine environment, it is going into the soil.
Yes.
Because the plastic goes into the soil, chemicals are being leached into the soil. We are planting trees for food in that same soil. How much of that chemical is that plant absorbing? And then we eat the fruits from that plant, and then we wonder about certain things that are happening to us. Our grandparents didn't have that issue because they didn't have the plastic. They had the little enamel bowl and the enamel cup.
Right.
So then when they ate the yam and the dasheen and stuff like that, you know, it made life so much better in terms of health issues, because they were a sturdy stock, right? And we now have to be mindful. Is it plastic that is causing us so many health issues?
Yeah. So my research also tells me that enough plastic is thrown away in the world each year to circle the world 4 times.
Yes, and
To circle the world 4 times. That gets into the ocean, and it's a problem for marine life. Sustainable fishing
And tourism.
and tourism.
Yeah.
And we have also read about the plastic island
The Giles.
that is out there, and which is said to be twice the size of Hawaii.
Wow.
And so it's time for us now.
There are
to
5
be-
of them actually. 5 of those plastic islands.
And so it is more reason for us now to really now be the stewards that we're called to be of our destinations.
Exactly.
And we want to play our role in ensuring that we work towards promoting sustainable tourism development as we're committed to. And getting on board with Plastic Free July is one way of sending the message and raising awareness of our responsibility to preserve our environment. You know, when it's not just here for us alone, think about generations to come. We don't just want them to inherit plastic bags from us.
Exactly.
And so we also want them to be able to boast of beautiful Federation, beautiful St. Kitts and Nevis. You know, in Nevis we say Nevis naturally. It's a tagline that we use where we're promoting green and serene destination. And we want to ensure that whatever we do is in line with the message that we're sending out
Exactly.
there. And it's not just for it is for visitors, but especially so for ourselves as well. Allow me also to speak to an event that we are planning at the Ministry of Tourism. We're responsible for the Nivision Heritage Village. I hope you have visited the Nivision Heritage Village and you're allowed to step back in time. It showcases the history of Nevis through housing, starting with the period of the Amerindians who live here. So you will see the thatch huts and some of the artifacts that they would have used, you know, going through our history. And we have an event coming up, which will be one of the pre-cultural events. We usually have an open day where people can come and experience life back in time. One of the things we do the hot bread and butter in a stone oven, or in an oven. And a lot of people enjoy that. And we cook traditional food like the goat water, cornmeal and fish, and those sort of meals. For that day, we are proposing an absolute plastic-free day event. So no straws, no plastic bags, plastic bottles, cutlery, etc. And we also want to feature the calabash bowls.
Yes.
The calabash bowls.
I haven't seen those in a long time.
So we are going around with doing our search for the calabash trees. We still have some in
Yes.
Nevis. And they work very well. My mother still has one that she uses to boil cornmeal and all of that. And so there are alternatives out there. And it's not just... So we can try to plan to move away, even if we move away slowly, because, change comes over time. Right. And to consciously think, what else can we use? And as Daniel was saying, not just the use of the single use, which is one of the things that we're pushing, not just to think one-time use, but to go back to, an event will be held at the Heritage Village. Can you please bring your plates? Can you please bring your cup with you? Because you have them at home. And we will serve you your meal in your own plate and your own cup. You take that back home, reuse.
Yes.
So that is the idea.
Part of the problem, I think, that we might have here in St. Kitts is that we do not have a recyclable plant for plastic.
That's true. But I think
in some places you can return plastics. And it's recycled. For example, in the US and so on, when you're putting out your garbage, there's a separate container for plastics and so on. One reason they take that and they recycle it and that sort of thing.
But here, the size seems to be one of the challenges. And even though we do consume quite a lot of plastics, as a matter of fact, our consumption patterns are much higher than in other destinations.
Yes.
However, because of economies of scale, it doesn't seem fitting for us to do recycling here. Maybe to start we'd have enough, but after a while, and we've gotten into the program, it would not be the amount of waste generated, the amount of plastics would not adequately serve a recycling plant unless we begin to import. But I know that there are a couple businesses on St. Kitts, and I'm not sure how many on Nevis, but I know Nevis has started talking about compacting waste as well. But they collect plastics, compact them, compress them for shipping. I know one such example is Admirals, and I was recently told that Judith Gums might also be involved in a program where she collects empty plastic bottles for shipping to another Caribbean island, because sometimes we're all one Caribbean, and it might not make sense for an individual island to do a project like this or a program like this. But if there's another island close by that already has an established recycling program, we can work together. And I know for sure that a few of the islands near to us, Barbados and Trinidad, they have programs. As a matter of fact, in my discussions with another government department, the idea came up that we can begin a program to pilot a program in schools whereby we collect the plastic bottles and they're shipped to a company in Trinidad where they use the recycled plastic to make tables and chairs. And so there are alternate uses. And there are already companies within the region who are using these bottles, these plastics, to make other things. And these are things that we use because, of course, we need chairs and, of course, we need tables.
That's right.
So we are not just sending it back into a landfill, but we are finding alternate uses for the plastics that we would have generated. I also spoke to another company, and they're looking at a project where they actually break down the bottles, and they've started already, but they're using the PET bottles that were not properly formed to make the microplastic. And I don't know how many persons are aware, but microplastics a big part of makeup, cosmetics. And so if we have a company locally that's going to be breaking down the plastics to be used for microplastics, while we would not want plastics really in the environment, there's an alternate use. And of course, we know our ladies, I mean, I just participated in this year's music festival, attended the events, and I could see the amount, all of the makeup artists getting a lot of business, even with proms happening right now. A lot of persons are patronizing the persons who are into cosmetology, and I know one of the big features is those cosmetics that feature microplastics, or even body scrubs. If you're going to the spa, those plastics end up being used in the scrubs that are used in many of our spas. So there are things that can be done.
Right. Now,
can I just say something?
Go right
I
ahead.
just want to, to add to the discussion. I think also, as we look at solution to pollution, that we can, in a way, create business opportunities.
Exactly.
You know, I think young persons can come together. Different groups of persons can come together and see what business they can think of in terms of recycling plastic. I remember I visited Mexico, and a group of women, they had a co-op, and they designed beautiful bags that were, you know, recycled from plastic. And I have one at home that I still treasure today. And these are items that they sell to people. So certainly, I think out of this, we can have businesses emerging as well.
Exactly.
And I believe that support can be given, you know, through discussions and persons showing interest in terms of helping persons to develop these businesses.
right. The plastic pollution comes from people just simply disposing of plastic as trash. And we see it on our beaches, we see it in our drains, they're clogging up our drains and so on. When it rains and so on, there's a drainage problem. You have a flooding problem and so taking place. Our people need to be more conscious in terms of not littering. I simply see the pollution on our beaches as littering. It is really nastiness. That is what it boils down to, you know.
And lack of pride.
And lack of pride, because there's, you know, you should have your garbage bags if you're going for a picnic and so on.
Absolutely.
And put your, you know, soda bottles and so on in the garbage bags. Not just throw them on the beach.
So
You shouldn't
again,
really just throw anything on the beach, really, but you have a lot of plastic
Yes.
on the beach. And so we have to have all of these beach cleanups.
Exactly. And there was a beach cleanup on Sunday at Connery Beach. And then I got a call from a local church, and they want to join in the activities for Plastic Free July. And they're proposing to do a beach cleanup on the 21st. And there's another beach cleanup on the 29th by another group. And what they're doing, one of the things they did on Sunday was to separate the waste, so that they had plastics separated from the other waste, because that plastic is going to be used to create an art exhibit that we're going to have at the National Museum. We want people to get a feel of what it feels like in the marine environment when you're swimming through all the plastics. So we're going to have the plastics hanging, and you're walking below, plastics all around you, all of them found on the beaches of St. Kitts and Nevis. And that is one of the things we want, because sometimes it's difficult for people to understand what you're saying because they have not gone through it. There's some people, even if you tell them the stove is hot, don't touch it, unless they touch it,
Yeah,
they
want
don't.
to experiment.
Exactly. There are people who have to experience things. So we are giving them a terrestrial experience of what is happening in the marine environment.
Right. And the ecosystem. Plastic disrupts the world's ecosystem. Because if you're going to be talking about our marine life and human life and plant life, then the ecosystem is somehow disrupted.
Sure.
Plastic, for my research, has toxins and poison animals and so on. Poison birds, poison fish, and even poison human beings. Sometimes you don't even realize when you put in all of these things that we have to put in the microwave and so on.
Exactly. Because the heat,
The heat is it's creating some sort of
chemical reaction.
chemical reaction. We are putting those things in our bodies.
So definitely reducing the use of plastic is for our own good in many ways. And especially it should be a health concern for us as we look at the food chain, as we look at, you know, the ecosystem. And so what we're hoping, even as we're promoting Plastic Free July, is that, you know, there will be a change of lifestyle.
Exactly.
And we'll be a bit more responsible and say that we can make a difference. I can take a fabric bag to the supermarket, or I can take. We have to commend also some of the supermarkets who are already coming on board and seeing the need to reduce the plastic bags and giving out bags and selling bags for a small fee.
Yes.
You know, and that will encourage us to use those bags as well. So we want to encourage, you know, us as a people to use bags that can be reused. And you can always make yourself a very nice, strong bag as well, you know, if you know how to do that. If you prefer to have a bigger bag. You mentioned about your experience in the UK, but even closer home in the USVI, where now supermarkets and other businesses, they're refraining from giving plastic bags, so you have to pay, I think it's a dime, 10 cents, yes, for a plastic bag. And if you're buying one or two items, you know, we say, oh, no thank you, it's okay. And people walk out of the stores now, you know, with their shirt in their hand or whatever the item is that they're purchasing.
Exactly.
So you're at a cost, and we may help to reduce the use.
Right.
Have you partnered with any supermarkets, the ministry, in terms of, for example, a supermarket can say, well, look, this month we are going plastic free. You bring something to collect your your goods.
Yeah, we've been trying since last year to get that done. We did promote reusable bags at one of the supermarkets. What the problem is, though, for us, each supermarket, none of the supermarkets want to be the pioneer. They're saying, if I start, I might lose my customers to my competitors, because people might get disgruntled and say, oh, well, they're not giving me a bag, so I'm going to the other supermarket to purchase my goods, where I'm going to get the plastic bag. At the same time, though, we were able to find out that there's actually one supermarket that gives you money back if you bring your own bag and spend over $50. So if you spend over $50, you get a small amount back on your purchase. Not many people are aware of that, but that is what happened at Ram Supermarket.
Right.
And they already have cash and carry. And the strange thing is, some of the same people who complain about not getting plastic bags go to cash and carry, and they walk with their bags, or they use the cardboard boxes. But we've become so comfortable and expect that these bags are going to be there. As a matter of fact, my colleagues, just before we came up here, said they had gone to Ram Supermarket on the Bay Road, and even though she had her reusable bag, the person who was the bagger was already going to put her stuff in the plastic bag. And she said to him, no, I have my own bag. Don't you know about Plastic Free July and whatever? He wasn't aware really, but what he said is, miss, the people them just back at us when we don't put their stuff in the plastic bags. I mean, what is wrong with our people that, you know, you don't get the bag and you start shouting at the person, rather than trying to understand what they're helping you with by encouraging you not to use the plastic bags. And sometimes it's not just even one plastic bag. One gentleman who moved here to work with a local hotel said on his first week here, his shopping, he accumulated 35 plastic bags. And he was shocked because where he comes from, that is unheard of. 35 bags, because we want a bag for every item.
Well, and it's not just one they're giving you two.
Exactly.
They're doubling the bags.
They double the bags, and then you have things and that they think might be separated. So you have the double bags for the main groceries, but there's a one item that they don't want mixed with the other item, so that goes into another bag. And you buy, for example, you buy your fruits. They're already wrapped in plastic, but they're being put in another plastic bag. So just think about the amount of plastics. Another hotel told me with respect to straws, because we take straws for granted, a guest uses 5 straws on average, 5 straws per day. If you have 300 guests, that's 1,500 straws in one day. 30 days would be how many straws, how many thousands of straws. And the straws are so difficult to pick up. They end up on the beach. They end up, I saw a video and I was telling people about it. The video with the turtle with the straw stuck in its nostril. It was painful for me, and I'm not the turtle, right? Because it became lodged into the turtle's brain.
Right.
So when they tried to take it out, I mean, you could almost see the turtle crying. I mean, the turtle is an animal, but you could see it, that it was in pain. There's stories about crabs with the covers for the canned sodas wrapped around their middle, and so they grow and their body is split almost like a spider.
Yes.
Because they went through that thing when they were little and could not get it off and continued to grow. Their body grew around it, and it messes with their internal organs.
When I was younger, still young, but
I
when
was just
younger,
wondering.
it seems to me that we didn't have the number of plastic that we have now. One of the things we are seeing today is that the prevalence of bottled water. Everybody now buying bottled water.
It's the in thing. It's the fad. You have to have, because you want to show that you're coming up, you have money, so you can afford. You don't have to drink water from the pipe, as we say. And we forget the days. We're forgetting the days when you went to the standpipe and drank directly from the standpipe.
That is correct.
Right? So you have to show people that you're not poor, because you're looked down upon when you have to drink the water from the standpipe, or you're just taking the water in a glass and you don't bring a bottled water. You have to show that you have arrived. So you bring your bottled water every day. Each day you have a bottled water or two, and then that ends up.
And you think the bottled water is better than the pipe water?
Yes. Well, I have my
or sometimes
friends.
the bottled water is just pipe water.
Exactly. I have my friends in the rural areas who complain they don't want the chlorinated water. Bastia water doesn't taste good because it's chlorinated. And so, because they've begun chlorinating around the island, even more persons in the rural areas are now buying bottled water because they don't taste the chlorine. But they're not thinking about the consequences of the bottle, because even if you do buy bottled water, how about buying the larger containers and getting a reusable mug, well, bigger than this one, of course, this is just a festival cup, and pouring the water into that and taking it with you on a daily basis. And I know, for example, Island Purified Water has a refill station.
Yes.
So you buy the big one and then you take it back, refill it for a small fee, and you have that and you use it constantly. I mean, that is one way you can eliminate the amount of smaller plastic bottles that go to our landfill. Never breaking down, because we're not going to be around 500 years from now to see that plastic bottle break down. Right?
What about bamboo utensils instead of plastic ones?
That's a good alternative. And just today, I actually got a note from my colleague who said she just spoke to the general manager for Park Hyatt. And Park Hyatt is one of the sponsors of our activities this month. And Park Hyatt has now gone global with their plastic-free move. And he said they're now in the process of removing the plastics. And they're looking at bringing in bamboo straws and paper straws. Right? And Park Hyatt is a global company.
It is.
Right? And they're looking at using those things because bamboo, we know bamboo can be quite sturdy. And I remember just a couple of years ago, our Destination Council was talking about a reforestation project where we could start reforesting with bamboo. So maybe now is the time. And as Vanessa said, talking about entrepreneurial spirit, it doesn't have to be government who does it. How about a farmer coming to government and saying, look, I understand people are going plastic free and I'm going to plant some bamboo. That is what I'm going, because people are looking for bamboo. It is very good for making furniture. It can be used for making straws. You can use it for clothing. It actually is used to make blankets and stuff like that. I'm going into growing bamboo.
Yes, but the cost of production is probably greater. You see, I think one of the things that is driving all of this plastic is that it is very cheap to manufacture.
But
in the production of it,
right,
it
but
is cheap to produce.
But
and because it's cheap to produce,
we gravitate.
It's cheap to consume.
But how do you value life?
We're looking at long-term benefits.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at and making a call for persons to show corporate social responsibility.
Yes.
And that our bottom line is not just about money. So we should be concerned about people. While we're concerned about profits, we should also be concerned about people and the planet.
Exactly.
And so we believe that collectively, we can, if we change our mindset about what is our goal. It's not just about making the dollar, but we also have to preserve the environment in which we live in for our benefit, for the benefit of our visitors, and like I said, the future generation. And so the bottom line for us is not just the profit. And I believe that people are ready to have discussions on this if we, take it step by step and to show that there are alternatives. I just want to say, as you mentioned the bamboo, that I love Mrs. Taylor Williams' idea of a farmer getting involved in this as a business in terms of reforestation or afforestation,
Right.
And so I certainly embrace the idea of bamboo, for us, and that could help us to get into small manufacturing projects as well. I think there's need for us to diversify a bit, and we can help to bring about solutions to some of the problems, the challenges we are facing as we work towards a cleaner St. Kitts Nevis.
Right.
Cleaner, greener.
Exactly.
Good. You mentioned a good point, and that is we cannot always look at just profit.
Yes.
But Diane was saying that part of the challenge, especially here in our own local context, of selling this to the supermarkets in terms of going plastic free, is that they feel if I go plastic free, I am going to lose business. I am going to lose some of my profit. But who is willing to bite the bullet?
Exactly.
I understand.
Somebody has to do it, because
And become known for the environmental friendly supermarket.
Exactly, and that's a position that can become a marketing strategy for that company, because that could be your strong point.
And when people come to St. Kitts, say, but I am going to the environmentally friendly supermarket.
And they'll ask
because I support the planet.
Yes, and there are persons who are
People do that.
do that. The responsible, visitors.
Exactly. There's an intern in our office, and she told me she had gone to the supermarket to get eggs. No, she had gone to the supermarket with someone, and they were encouraging her to get the eggs. She said, the person said to her, "These are local eggs," and she said, "Yeah, but what did they eat? I want the eggs from the hens that eat corn and the grass and the bread." and she refused to buy those eggs. She wants the eggs that we call happy eggs with the very yellow yolk. And a lot of visitors now are doing that. Returning nationals from the UK. I met a gentleman at the supermarket on Sunday. And they said, "Sir, can I take your picture? I realize you have your reusable bag." He said, Of course I have my reusable bag. When I lived in the UK, I used to take my bag. So when I come back home, why shouldn't I take my bag to the supermarket?"
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right? And that is what we want people to start looking at it. He came back from the UK. We are small. We can't even compare to the UK. We are small. We are impacted because the chemicals and all the things that come out of the production of plastics, and because of plastics, are creating issues for us with respect to climate change. If we don't believe anything else, just reflect on less than a year ago the impact that climate change had on us as a small island state.
Yes.
Right? And I mean, we would not want to have to go through that. And the scientists are saying it's gonna get worse before it gets better. So if by reducing the amount of plastics I generate is gonna help to reduce the impacts of the storms, climate change, then I should do something.
Yes.
People want things to change, but they don't want to be a part of the change. They'll want to tell you, "I think we should do this, and I think we should do that." But when they're saying we, they mean, "I think you should do it." But the
They
best
don't
way
see
to
themselves as a part of
of
the
it,
we. Mhm.
but the best way to create a change is to be that change,
That is correct.
right? And so that's what we want people to do with the plastic. Incremental steps. Because it's now a part of your lifestyle, your way of life. It's difficult to get out of it. Because even for me, sometimes I have my reusable bag, and it's my little daughter who says, "Mommy, I left the bag in the car," because we're now at the cashier, right? You forgot the bag. And it's it's the younger generation. We need to get them because they're excellent ambassadors. That child would insist that she's not taking this thing because it's not in the reusable bag, or because they gave her a plastic straw. She doesn't want any plastic straw, so she's not having it. And they'll behave like that. But you can use that for positive. The influence, the appearance. A gentleman told me he worked at a automotive sales business, and he said he loved when the people coming to look for cars brought children. He was going to pay attention to the children. When that child gets into the car and decide, "I'm not moving, Mommy, we're carrying this car, we're buying this car," and the child sits there and starts a tantrum, that pressure, that embarrassment on their parents causes them to consider purchasing the car. If we get those young children to start thinking, "I do not want anything in a plastic cup unless it's reusable. Mommy, I insist that we walk with our cup," a lot of us will be forced to think twice and to take the right steps.
Now, 8% of the world's oil production is used to manufacture
plastics.
8%. And that figure is expected to rise, from what I understand, to 20% by 2050.
It will rise based on the demand, but if we say that we are going to try and use reusable bags, I like what Daniel said about educating the children, because that's the next generation. And if the next generation says, "Hey, we won't be using all this plastic," then that figure will be reduced, and reduced significantly. So in terms of the decision makers, the people really have the power. And so we can make that conscientious decision and say, collectively, we're going to move in another direction and move away from the use of plastic bags. I just want to say that, as Daniel spoke, I was thinking, as I believe if we continue the education, if we continue to spread the word, reuse, repair, reduce, recycle, that people will respond over time. I believe if we get the education to the adults and also in the schools to the children, it would be great to have the children reminding the parents.
Yes.
Because sometimes people do forget. I mean, we have bags at home, but because it's not in our culture right now,
Yes.
you know, we tend to forget. So little messages on the radio, remember, you know, reminding us to take our bags to the supermarket. I believe those will be helpful messages that can help to bring around the change that we're looking for.
That's true. And as you mentioned, 2050, you spoke about the increase in the amount of plastic production by 2050. There's also statistics that say by 2050 there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish.
So what does that create?
Exactly.
We can't eat the plastic.
Not at all. But these are just, as we know, hypothetical statement. These are people are saying, hey, if we continue on this trend, this is what
exactly.
will happen.
So we can stop it.
Is this what we want to happen? Do we want to have more plastic in the sea than fish? And certainly not. So we can divert.
Okay.
And and that doesn't have to be reality.
Now 40% of the plastic produced is packaging.
Right.
40% of the world's plastic production is in packaging. And in packaging, you use it once and you throw it away. I like cranberry juice, Ocean Spray. And I buy a lot of cranberry juice. And what I realized is that my house started filling up with all these bottles from the cranberry juice.
Yeah.
Because afterwards, what am I going to do with them?
Right.
Maybe I use 1 or 2 of them to put some water in the fridge.
Yes, exactly. But how many go in your
But then they're really a nuisance to me, and I have to get rid of them. You know? So, how do we repackage and get that message across to the manufacturers?
Exactly. Because we're not a big manufacturer of like food products and St. Kitts, it's slightly different for us. But I know efforts have been made globally to bring that message home, and you'll see different types of packaging being used in some of the juices. Things that we were accustomed to being in plastics, they're now putting in glass bottles. They're using something that uses less plastic, so it has paper on the outside, but it's lined with some plastic, which reduces the amount of plastic that's in it.
Yes.
Those are some of the things that are being done, and maybe the volume that is being produced, so you don't have too many of the smaller bottles, you'll have larger quantities, so then you would use your glass and you throw out some and it lasts a little longer. Those are some of the things that are being done. But for St. Kitts, our main producers, for example, might be those people who sell natural juices. But then if we take our cup and say, can I have my juice in my cup, then we'll have that change, and maybe then that person would be using a 5-gallon container, and people come with their reusable cup, and so then you get 16 ounces of beet juice or 16 ounces of gooseberry juice, rather than going by the person and buying it, because then that person has to buy the plastic bottles that they're gonna put it in to sell it to you. You have now eliminated that cost for them.
Yes.
Right? And so it works both ways. Their costs in terms of their inputs are being reduced, and we would hope that that also translates to reduction in cost for you, the person who is purchasing,
Yes.
when you take along your reusable utensils.
No, we have to go to the phone lines in a bit, but let's talk a little bit about the impact on health, human health. What is the impact of plastic on human health, and animal health, marine health?
But
What are some of the impacts? I know we have probably, touched on some briefly.
in some research that I recently did, it says correlations have been shown between the levels of some of the chemicals involved in the manufacture of plastics and an increased risk of problems such as chromosomal and reproductive system abnormalities, impaired brain and neurological functions, cancer, cardiovascular system damage, adult onset diabetes, early puberty, obesity, and a resistance to chemotherapy.
Wow.
And so we looked at one in our destination council. We were looking at the chicken and egg situation, because plastics can cause cancer. Chemotherapy is seen as one of the solutions to cancer, but plastics also make you resistant to chemotherapy. So we are in a real catch-22 situation here, because the same plastic that's going to cause you to get the cancer will prevent you from getting better or getting over the cancer, because it resists the treatment that is found in chemotherapy. It affects brain function. It affects the cardiovascular system. I mean, it affects so many different things.
Yes.
And to the detriment of our people, and you see more and more persons dying. I mean, the big cry in St. Kitts and Nevis when a young person dies is about the issue of cancer, right? We also have issues with asthma, where
Respiratory illnesses. Yeah.
where exactly. And in speaking to someone recently, one of the things, sometimes you get a plastic bag, a shopping bag, and you can smell. And people say, these bags smell bad, eh? But that's the toxin, that's the chemicals that were used in the manufacture of those plastic bags that you are inhaling. And you don't know what particulates are being inhaled as you take up the bag. How is it affecting your respiratory system? We're seeing situations where there's combustion at our landfills.
Harmful gas emissions.
Exactly.
Carbon monoxide and so on.
Right. Right. So there are enough threats to human health for us to take another look at our usage of plastics.
Yes. The benzene and the methane and
Right.
Yes.
all of that, the ozone and all of that. All of those things are also affecting and contributing to climate change.
Change, exactly.
And you know, you talk about the cost.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
What is the cost
what
of
is
your
the
life?
cost?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. I wanted to say too. I agree with the concern about littering. Not to move off from what you're talking about.
Sure,
health,
yes.
But I think we have to be more responsible in how we're disposing. Because right now in our federation, at this time of our development, we are more consumers than producers.
That's it.
That is correct.
And so we are taking whatever is brought in. So you mentioned the small bottles. And so the challenge is, how do we dispose all of these containers? And the time really has come for us to sit down and have discussions on recycling and seriously make decisions about disposing all of these small items which are being packaged, because packaging is an issue that we have to consider and reconsider. I don't know how much discussions our buyers have with manufacturers and in terms of maybe getting a middle person to negotiate and to this definitely is a global concern, and we can't take it lightly anymore. We have to go forward to find solutions.
And part of it, I think, is legislation.
Yes.
We really need to put in place legislation for littering.
Of course.
We need to.
And enforcement.
And
Because
enforcement of
There
it.
is
Yes.
some legislation, but very often there's very little enforcement of the laws with respect to littering. And what some people don't realize, that there's a correlation between things like littering and crime. If you turn a blind eye to a person who is littering, he gets away with breaking the law in that area. People, as human beings, we have a tendency to push the needle. So you get away with that, you try something bigger and bigger and bigger, and it leads to other issues, because littering is a crime. How can you turn a blind eye to littering as a crime? It's a crime just like robbery or any other assault or any other crime. So you don't turn a blind eye, because it leads to other issues. Your littering can cause a person to die. So you might not be there when the person dies, it might be sometime after.
That's
but
right.
your littering causes people to die, because when people throw things over in the gut sides,
It
and
go-
then it causes problems when we have heavy rains.
Flooding.
It goes down to the
Flooding.
sea.
If right,
But remember, the guts go to
Go
the
to
sea,
the
the
sea.
water, and it takes all that bottles and garbage down to
Everything.
the sea,
Yeah.
And
and
then
then the sea is polluted.
exactly.
And sometimes the guts are clogged.
And the
Right.
guts are clogged.
And then the
you
water
have
finds
flooding.
another
You
route.
have another
Yes.
problem. You have flooding, and that becomes dangerous as well.
Exactly.
It
It's a
becomes
hazard.
So we really have to be more responsible. Is what we can't say. We cannot stop repeating how more responsible we have to become
Right.
as destination stewards.
Exactly.
Right. And some of you need to have people employed on the beaches and so on
Right.
to ensure that people are not polluting the beaches.
Exactly.
That is a concern we have. Nevis each year we take part in the annual coastal cleanup, which is held in
Right.
September, and I know hundreds of bags of
Garbage.
are collected along the coastline, and in these bags where we itemize what is collected,
Right.
and plastic is a major concern as well. So we want to say stop the littering, please.
Okay. Now we have to go to the phone lines and hear from the people. I know you have a whole month of events and so on, which we'll discuss before we leave,
Sure.
in terms of how to bring awareness to the whole issue of plastic pollution and how it affects us all.
Yes.
So the numbers to call, the local number is 465-2555 and the overseas number is 1718-577-2916. That is 1718-577-2916. We await your calls. There is no one on the line. Suppose we become so familiar with plastic.
Or we don't want to give it up.
We don't want to give it up. It has become so much a part of our lives that we don't want to part with it for a while. But what would be some of the activities that you have to bring awareness to this whole issue of plastic pollution and how we can reduce the number of plastic in our environment?
In Nevis, my colleague, Miss Nicole Liebert, she is one of the persons who is leading the drive for Plastic Free July. And I know there are plans to have messages via the media encouraging persons to go plastic free, encouraging persons to reduce use of, especially single use of plastic bags. And so there will be talks on NTV. We are also hoping we can eventually establish a plastic free day in July, and for that day absolutely no plastics, not just the plastic bags, no styrofoams, anything along that line. We recognize it might be a concern for some of the restaurants, but we're saying it will be a great day for us to have fun and be creative, and ask persons just for that one day to bring the container or
What with the calabash?
or sit and use the plates which are at the restaurant.
Right.
Yes. So we definitely are looking forward to establishing our plastic-free day in July. But we're just pioneering. This is our first time coming on board, and we certainly will look to have more activities in future.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
And there's Vanessa also forgot to mention, because there's a film that, through the sponsorship of Park Hyatt, a documentary that is being shown. It's shown
The Plastic Ocean.
Plastic Ocean. It's being shown at the National Museum at the St. Christopher National Trust on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Wednesdays at 10 a.m., Saturdays at 11:15 a.m. But tomorrow there's a special evening showing, because we are cognizant of the fact that some persons might not be able to make the day presentations, and so we are going to have a presentation tomorrow evening at Shadwell Estate Great House at 5:30 p.m. and persons are free to come. It's a free documentary. We'll be showing you the impact, environmental and social impacts of plastics on our lives, and there are different stories that are taken from different places around the world. We get to see the issue of the gyres, the plastic islands, and where they are located. I was actually surprised to see that there's one in the Atlantic Ocean, huge gyre. And then we are also having Be the Change Week, and during that week persons will be encouraged to be a part of the change. Not to use the single-use plastics, refuse straws, take your reusable water bottle, have your reusable cups for those who have like their coffee. And I tell my colleagues, I'm going by the Smoothie King on 4th Street, and I'm taking my reusable cup, festival cup, and I would like to get my smoothie in that cup. We are also encouraging the businesses on 4th Street in particular. We wanted to have a defined area to, for that period, reduce the amount of plastics, especially for businesses that would use water bottles. Staff are going out to buy water bottles. How about investing in a fountain and have the staff bring in their reusable mugs and cups, so that they would use that to get their water instead of having individual plastic bottles. We are also going to have a march at on the 28th to create even greater awareness, and it's also Wear Purple Day.
Why purple?
That's the color we chose. If you look at the head of the Plastic Free July turtle, its head, it's purple. Okay. So we're using the head this time. And the Sea Turtle Monitoring Network, they're having their usual camp, and that is one of the activities that the children will be leading.
Okay, so of course the children should lead in terms of this.
Right.
Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes, a pleasant good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I had the opportunity this morning to go and look at the documentary at the National Museum, right? And I am concerned that I know a lot of local especially not gonna attend. And why I say that, I always hear people saying that they don't listen to the news, they don't listen, they're just into music. I went there this morning, and at the time, let me say about 7 or 8 of us were looking at the documentary, and I was the only local was there. The others were people who come off the ship and so on, right? So how are you going to get the information to the people who you're trying to get the information to? You're inviting them to come to the museum, they're not coming. They're not going to listen to the radio. How are you going to get that information, that very important information, to them? The documentary has caused me to open my eyes wider. Even though I know about a lot of plastic, because I go on hikes and so on, and I see a lot of plastic in the gut and in the ravine and them kind of stuff. And when the rain comes, it's come down toward the sea, because everything from the mountain end up in the sea, because that's the route where the water flow taken toward the sea. Yes, so I can always concerned as a citizen how we could get the people more educated about it. Even though we're trying to get the information across to them, they're not coming to get the information. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you so much for your call.
Okay. Thank you for actually attending and being one of the few.
There's another caller. Working for you, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon to all of you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Diane. So this is Purple, and I had a joke. Well, it's not a joke, to share with you. So you remember on Friday last, we had an interview regarding Plastic Free July.
Right.
And as soon as I left, as a background, I've always been an advocate for using less plastics in general.
That's right.
But when I left the interview, I went down to a food establishment to purchase some food, and I took a plastic bag. And when I recognized what I had done, because it is such a habit, I felt terrible. And so I just wanted to make this call to tell people that it's not going to happen overnight. We have to just be conscious every day with every action and try our best as well to, do it less. We don't want to just stop it one time because it's going to be hard to do, but we have to make a concerted effort to put thought into our actions. And two more things. I also want to encourage people to use less plastics at the supermarket. I know you said it, but I get really upset when I see people buy one bread and they have to leave the supermarket with the bread that is already in a plastic bag, and the plastic bag has to be doubled. I don't understand. Unless we can eat and cook the plastic, then I would understand then. And finally, I know the young lady from Nevis touched on it, but I was telling my coworkers that I'm encouraging them for the entire month of July and beyond. I'm going to be in their skin. I'm going to be hugging them about using less plastics. And so one of them said, well, I use the plastic bags for garbage to put my garbage in. And I tell her, even that is terrible, because when you put them in the garbage and the garbage truck collects them, they take them to the landfill. The landfill isn't a magical place that gets rid of plastic. So no matter what you use them for, they're still existing. So I just wanted to encourage people in general to take baby steps, and together we could all make St. Kitts and Nevis better. Y'all have a fabulous afternoon.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you.
I wonder how many children, if there are any statistics to show, how many children choke on plastic.
Unfortunately, I don't have that figure, but I know it's a significant
Because you
number.
often see it as a warning.
Yes, suffocation.
Suffocation. So just how the fish or the turtles would suffocate the plastic, children, that problem is in children too, that they have to
Right.
put a warning on
Exactly.
plastic products. What about the schools? How did you do any awareness in the schools? Your program for July, working for you. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
The idea about eradicating the plastic is not just a new phenomenon. It's been around with us for quite some time. And the way I decided to make a start, is that I used to go at Saturday times. I would buy my food from a little restaurant, and I always said to the lady, I'm going to start to walk with my calabash. I'm going to buy a calabash. And she thought it was a joke. Well, lo and behold, a couple Saturdays after the conversation, I bought my calabash, and she realized that it was serious. So I started to, every Saturday when I go there, I walk with my calabash. And so that is the way I decided to attack this thing. As an environmental conscious person, I decided this way. And then about a month afterwards, I heard the Premier, Premier Mark Brantley of Nevis, mention about the styrofoam. And so I said, well, at that government level, it is good. But I find something, though, with us in St. Kitts. Somehow we tend to have an approach like the wait-and-see game. Oh, we will wait and see what this island will do and what that island will do before we get on board. Somehow it appeals to me that that's the way we approach things in St. Kitts. Because there are other issues out there that we play the wait-and-see game too. But I want to send an appeal to the population that this thing, as a small island, this plastic is no wait-and-see game. The sooner we approach this plastic phenomena and try to eradicate it, because for one, it is not biodegradable, and it is affecting our lives. I had a conversation with a guest, because I'm a taxi driver, and I said to that conversation, we was coming over the hill from down in Carambola, and as we came over, we saw all of that sargassum, that seaweed that came in, that continued to come in, especially on the Atlantic side.
Yes.
And we had a conversation, and I said to him, if I put a tarpaulin over some grass, right, and I remove that tarpaulin after a month, let's say a month or so, you will see the color, the grass texture might be lighter than the green, the certain type of greenery that we accustomed to see the grass. And I say, I wonder if all those plastics that they say, these plastics in the ocean is as big as France and the likes. I wonder if all that plastic that is covering that portion of the seabed is a cause. That's a theory. This is my theory. I wonder if all that plastic is a cause for what we are seeing with so much unusual sargassum that we are experiencing in our part of the world. That's just a thought, and I just want to throw that out there. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very good input. Yes. That's another issue, the sargassum on our beaches. We talk about the plastic and so on our beaches, but that looks really ugly, and it's a sight for...
And it has a stench because there's a tiny microorganism that lives in it, which dies.
It has a stench.
Yes. So that's another issue.
The other day I was driving around by Sadler's area.
Yes.
That area. And it is really bad there. It really needs to be cleaned up.
Yes. But it's being produced so fast. And sometimes if you're not cleaned as fast, it gets pulled back into the sea and comes back
I see.
again. But what do you do with it? Because there are ideas in terms of using it to make fertilizer, but it also uses a lot of water to desalt it. How do we get the two things?
And I think some CFBC students had used it to do makeup or something like that.
I know about the
kind of,
fertilizer.
But that is also one of the effects of climate change.
Exactly. So, and it is impacting us. We're in tourism. For the visitor, that beach is dirty, and most of the visitors that come to the Caribbean, they come to go on the beaches. Yes, you have the history and all the other things. You can visit this, you can do the sky safari, you can do all the other things, but at the end of the day, they want to take a moment on the beach. So I'll do a hike in the morning and I'll go to the beach in the afternoon. If the beaches look like that, then they're not going to come. They're going to find another destination which is not so badly impacted by this.
Yes.
To go there. Same thing with the plastics on the beach. If the beaches are dirty, whether it's sargassum or plastic, they're not going to come. And because of the internet, which is the great equalizer, people can now do their research. They're not going to just rely on your pretty magazines which have a picture of a lovely pristine beach to come. They're going to be doing research, and in time the internet affords them in time information. Beaches are messed up with the sargassum or garbage, then I look for another place where I can go to. And our destination, St. Kitts and Nevis, is not a cheap destination. It's very costly to get here. So why would I pay a lot of money to come to a dirty beach? I'm going to go somewhere which costs far less, which might have a better beach. So we have to make sure that we're doing what we can, and we can't always say, well, what is government doing? What are we doing? Because it's all of us, right, that are depending on the income that is generated by tourism.
Right. There's a gentleman who made a very good point, and he said that, with a plastic ocean screening,
Yes.
perhaps not many people will come.
Right.
So my thing is, how can we take it to the people? I did mention the schools.
Yes.
Can we take it into the schools, for example? Can we take that message into the schools? Was anything scheduled to have school visits, school talks, in this plastic-free July?
No.
To reach our young people? And is it possible that we could have gotten it, for example, put it on a big screen in the open, maybe somewhere at Greenlands or down at Frigate Bay Pasha, and you're going to have some eats and drinks and sell and all that sort of a thing? That might have attracted people even more.
See, that's why we have discussions, because we get other ideas. Because exactly, we can do we were actually looking for an outdoor location to have it. Christopher Harbour did volunteer someone at Christopher Harbour, one of the stores, but they're still working out the details of that. That one that's over at Christopher Harbour Marina. But sure, if we can get a screen, and there's a cost involved, can somebody partner with us so that we can they can donate their screen, that's their contribution towards the effort, and we can project it, and people come up to Greenland's pasture, for example, because we want to take it, not even Greenland's pasture, because it's being shown in Bastia. We're taking it to the rural areas. Is there a place, for example, on the eastern side of the island, the western side, a big open area, maybe down at Blackwacks now that we've refurbished the booths, and have the screen, and we project this film, and people can come out and look at it. We're open to that. We're actually saying to people, these are the fixed places, but on the other days and times, if you want us to come and show it to your church group, we're willing to come and show it to your church group. If you have any other group, the guys who play dominoes, if you want to have a look, and we actually have two versions.
Yes.
We have the hour and a half full length version, and we have the 20-minute version. Now, we are also going to be showing it in our office at the Ministry of Tourism. So people who have appointments and they have come and they're waiting to do business, it will be shown on a loop, so you will be seeing it. So if you have to come to the Ministry of Tourism 20 times, if you missed a part because you only spent 2 minutes the last time, you might catch the other part. Or you might be interested, and we could say to you, if you want to see more, you can go to the museum, because sometimes people are not aware, like the gentleman said, but once they hear you or they see a little clip, we can also use, and we were discussing it this morning, so I was smiling when you were talking, those big screens that are now all around town,
Yes.
to promote the activity, for people to go show a little clip. So you're going, I know there's one by Neville's, for example, where you're going to Neville's. We know that you usually have a little wait when you're at
That's right.
Neville's. While you're waiting, take a
You can
little
look
look.
at it.
Take a little look at it. We're also promoting on social media, and we want to also share it with ZIZ at the end of the month, so it can be shown on ZIZ TV. It's also open to NTV, so they can show it for those who would not have made it to the showings that we have. But we'll do that at the end of the month, and we'll do it, and we have the license to do so.
We are also having discussions of being able to have a screening in Nevis. The gentleman who called, we really have to commend him for attending
Yes.
the screening, and all the callers, we want to commend him for championing the plastic,
Exactly.
coming on board as champion. And the gentleman asked a pertinent question in terms of getting persons to attend and how would the message go out. But he has been very instrumental today in
Exactly.
disseminating the message by
Right.
calling and sharing. And so we want to encourage him to continue the discussion with his friends and the people, in his village, the people in his church. So the persons who come, please spread the word around. Let people know about, what you have learned, and become champions.
Champions.
Yes.
I heard someone saying today, they saw it today for the first time, and they were impacted by what they saw. There was a scene where there was a necropsy being performed on a bird,
Yes.
and they took out, I think it was 5 tons of waste, but it was a large amount of waste, most of it being plastic, which caused the bird to die because it's in the stomach, and it prevents proper digestion. And so eventually the bird died. When they opened it, all of this plastic is inside the bird, right?
Yeah.
And so those are things you get to see how they're impacted. I talk about the turtles taking the plastic for jellyfish, and they eat it, but the turtles keep our coral reefs clean, right? And the coral reefs are an important part of our tourism product. It's for diving, people swim, they do snorkeling, and also this is where the baby fish are first nurtured.
Yes.
And so we want to be sure that we take care of our turtles as well.
Okay. Do you want to thank any of your partners, any of the sponsors, those who worked along with you, of course, in putting on this plastic-free July?
Sure. I'd like to extend...
Just before we leave.
Right. The St. Kitts Turtle Monitoring Network, the Department of Marine Resources that have come on board readily, their team, we've had Park Hyatt who has come on board to assist us, the Ministry of Tourism, the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, the Nevis Ministry of Tourism, they've all come on board to assist with the promotion of Plastic Free July. The St. Christopher National Trust is also a very good partner, and we are encouraging other persons to come on board with us to ensure that the message about ending plastic pollution goes out and reaches every person in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Right. Vanessa?
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here today. We want to thank the St. Kitts Ministry of Tourism for reaching out to us, and we want to thank all the businesses in Nevis which we know will come on board over time. And again, I want to single out Ms. Nicole Liebert at the Ministry of Tourism, who has been instrumentally involved in Plastic Free July promotion. And I want to say assertively that we can eliminate the single use of plastic.
That's right.
And I think over time reduce plastic. So let us continue the discussion and encourage each other and remind each other to go plastic free. Thank you very much.
Okay, Diane and Vanessa, thank you very much.
Thank you for
And
having
I
us.
will try to do my part in terms of reducing my plastic use.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We
God
want
bless you.
to thank all of our listeners to today's program. Whatever you can do to reduce the use of plastic, please do. And please do not pollute the environment with your plastic products. Our beaches, our drains, our streets, and so on. Proper disposal is important. Next week we will be back for another Working for You program. I am your host, Les Roy Williams. Until then, remain plastic free.
Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Les Roy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcasts on participating stations. Working for You.